I'm ready to take on Night City because I have more of an idea of what I'm getting myself into, because I'm getting myself into a lot.
Variety princess, yeah. Variety princess, yeah. Variety princess,
Hello everyone, it is Deja, the Princess of Variety, and I am back with my World of Cyberpunk book review as promised. In this video, I'm not going to get too detailed with every little thing that the book said. This is actually going to be a quick little overview and my thoughts on specific things that the book mentioned, but I'm not going to, give all of the ins and outs of every little thing the book mentioned or talked about. I also have a notepad because I started reading this quite some time ago, maybe it's been like a month and a half. I took notes on the very first chapter and I want to kind of go into detail for that one at the very least, because that is the chapter that talks about how Night City came to be the way it is in the year of 2077. What the book actually talks about in terms of the chapters, the first chapter is talking about how Night City came to be. The second chapter talks about the different technology that you will encounter throughout the world and the game. So it talks about cyberware, weapons, vehicles, and Braindance, which I will talk to you guys about because I found that to be one of the more interesting parts of the book. Then it talks about the different districts within Night City. Then it talks about the social classes. So it talks about the rich and powerful, like the corpos, essentially. Then it talks about the middle tier, and then it talks about the down and out. And then the next chapter talks about law enforcement, the different gangs, and then it talks about the nomads and the different tiers of nomads that there are, or the different groups that there are within the nomads. And then the final chapter was an interview with Rogue, and I will talk to you guys a little bit about that in a bit. To start off, I'm going to tell you guys what I learned about how Night City came to be in 2077, because I found it to be very interesting. The first part is called The Collapse of the Old USA, because keep in mind, Night City is still in our universe, kind of, in a way, technically, because it takes place in the United States. Night City is a city that is located in California. The reason the old USA, which is USA as we know it today in the year of 2020, it collapsed. And the reason it collapsed is because companies gained access to the world's natural resources while having affiliations with politicians, and this resulted in environmental collapse and climate change. Essentially, corporations started to gain a lot of power, and they were also beginning to be in cahoots with the government. And so for them to have the ability to access natural resources to the extent that they were, obviously corporations are all about money. So this resulted in them having control over something that ended up spinning out of control and wasn't good, because with them having access to the natural resources of the world, it caused climate change, it caused the environment to collapse. So in 2077, the environment is not good, the air quality is terrible, just a lot. Night City is a very grungy place, to be honest. Yes, it's pretty. Yes, it is masked by the beautiful city and the neon lights, but it's really not a good place to live, honestly. That's what I really got from this book, if not anything else. So during the collapse of the USA, this marked the emergence of the nomads. which is the group that I talked about in one of my latest videos where I was talking about having trouble figuring out what life path to start out with. You guys should go watch that video if you haven't already and give me some pointers because your girl will need help. The nomads were a new American social class of migrants in search of water, jobs, and safety from political turmoil. The next segment is the Fourth Corporate War. So in late 2021, which is next year, it says 2 rival Aquatech agencies fought for control of a third corpo, and each agency hired Militech and Arasaka to protect their security interests. So basically 2 corporations were fighting for ownership of another corporation. Things got messy, so they started hiring Militech and Arasaka to protect their security interests. And Militech and Arasaka, you'll actually hear about these particular corporations a lot throughout the game and throughout this book. So then in early 2022, the Shadow War happened. And Militech and Arasaka began their own war shortly after because things got out of control with them going against one another for the sake of the 2 rival Aquatech agencies. And this went from unleashing devastating viral programs upon each other through the net to a full-out war by June 2022. That war was called the Hot War. What ended up happening during this war? Arasaka Towers in Night City were the last of Arasaka's American headquarters to fall, wiped out by a nuclear weapon detonated by a group of unidentified mercenaries. So if you guys have watched any news videos on Cyberpunk 2077, you would know that the center of Night City was blown out completely by a nuclear drop. It is suspected that the Atlantis group were the ones to do it. The Atlantis group consisted of Rogue, Morgan Blackhand, and Johnny Silverhand. Now, Rogue is the person that the book ended with, that I was speaking to you guys about before. The book ends with an interview with her, and she's actually asked in that interview if she actually had anything to do with that whole thing with the nuclear weapon being dropped on the center of Night City, and she says basically like, I plead the fifth. Morgan Blackhand was another person in the Atlantis group. I'm not completely sure who he is, but I think it is alluded to or maybe directly said in the book that nobody knows what happened to him. He kind of just disappeared. And then Johnny Silverhand, as we all know, is the character that's played by Keanu Reeves in the game. And he's said to have been a part of the tragedy that happened at the center of Night City. There just wasn't enough evidence to really prove that they were the ones that did it. Oh yeah, right here. It says Morgan and Johnny were never seen again after the Arasaka Towers incident. So Morgan Blackhand was never seen again after that happened. Neither was Johnny Silverhand. And as we all know, in the game, Johnny Silverhand is a figment of V's imagination. So he's not actually there. So I'm really excited to figure out what actually happened to him and Morgan as well. So pressure from the Japanese government resulted in Arasaka conceding defeat at the end of 2023. Now, from 2024 to 2035 is when the post-war happened. The world took more than a decade to recover from the global war. President Elizabeth Crest declared martial law in parts of the US that remained under executive control. This period marked the stagnation of technological development, and corporations were struggling to survive. This is kind of when the aftermath happened, and corporations weren't as powerful as they once were during this time. So as you can see, there's a recurring theme here. Corporations are a big deal in this universe. So reunification, this happened from 2035 to 2069, so we're getting closer to 2077. Cities slowly began to rebuild and trade routes were established. Night City was abandoned by President Crest and the United States government, so it was rebuilt by its citizens with the aid of nomads and smaller corporations. In Asia, Arasaka faced defeat with their head held high. The corporation spent a significant portion of their assets on war reparations. So Arasaka's kind of down in the dumps since they've lost the war and had to concede. And Night City was completely abandoned by the president at the time, named Elizabeth Kress. So Night City is kind of its own thing at this point, and this is the time where cities are slowly beginning to get back on their feet as they once were. So from 2069 to 2070 is when the Unification War / Metal Wars happened. As you can see, throughout the 2000s, there's just so much crazy stuff going on in the world. So there's a new president named Rosalind Myers, and she presented a unification program to extend federal rule over the free states under the pretense of strengthening the nation. So the United States has a lot of free states around this time. Throughout the time the wars and everything were happening, a lot of states separated and declared themselves as free states, meaning they were just not a part of the United States anymore. So it says most of the free states opposed unification, which resulted in the federal government of New United States, is what it's now called, backed by nationalized militech forces, declaring war on the loosely allied separatist states, which included Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, Montana, Arizona, Nevada, and Northern California. The government ended up declaring war against those free states. And then Washington, Oregon, and Idaho remained neutral in the conflict at the price of some concessions to the federal government. The free states were secretly supported by the Arasaka Corporation with weapons and security advisors, but were pressed hard by new USA forces who were assisted by states. So Arasaka secretly helping the free states during this time and giving them weapons to help them out. And I guess that was Arasaka's way of kind of getting back into the good graces of the United States after all of the turmoil they caused during their war with Militech. This conflict, fought with the most cutting-edge military technology, became known as the Metal Wars. Night City avoided the fighting, barely. North California and South California wound up on opposing sides. So basically, California is just getting split apart. North California has their own opinions on everything going on and their own decisions that they're making, and South California is opposing against what they're doing. So North California and South California, I was going to say South Carolina, South California wound up on opposing sides. South aligned with the US government and the North aligned with remaining independent from federal rule. Night City held their breath as they awaited invasion by federal troops. So you have North California, South California, and then you have Night City, kind of smack dab in the middle. Early 2070, a new USA Army division advanced to the outskirts of Night City, but the invasion was prevented due to Councilman Lucius Rhine beseeching the long-shunned Arasaka Corporation for protection. So their councilman called on to Arasaka to help them out. An Arasaka supercarrier arrived in Coronado Bay, and only hours later, the new USA Army had withdrawn. So Arasaka ended up protecting Night City. Following Arasaka's intervention, the Treaty of Unification was finally signed by the new USA and the Free States, ending the Unification War. The Free States retained their autonomy, but agreed to participate in the new federal government and to cease hostilities among themselves. So the Free States kind of gave up, but they still maintained being free states. They just agreed to participate in what the government wanted them to do. President Myers agreed to this solution, fearing that Arasaka's increasing involvement could result in escalating a conflict that the new USA could not afford. So Arasaka ended up helping Night City out, and they were actually helping a lot of the free states. So in the aftermath of the war, Night City was rededicated as an international free city, independent from the laws and governance of the new USA and the free state of Northern California. Night City paid for this liberty with the increase of mega corporate influence as the corpos pumped money into revitalization of the city to establish a foothold on the west coast of the new USA. So at this point, Night City is its own free city. And basically, with them not being involved with the government anymore, they paid for this with the increase of mega corporations because they kind of needed people to run the city since the government is no longer involved. So now you have these mega corporations starting to take over Night City. The symbolic capstone of these events took place when Night City allowed Arasaka to build their new American headquarters downtown on the site where their previous building was destroyed in 2023. Arasaka built a new headquarters in the center of Night City where their old building was before that drop happened that demolished it. The last part is called Modern Threats. Even though the Fourth Corporate War and the Unification War came to an end, humanity still faces serious threats, like climate change. Thousands and thousands of people have died due to soil depletion, famine, hurricanes, tornadoes, flooding, desertification, drought, and more. Developing cyber technologies have introduced the problem of cyberpsychosis, which causes sufferers to emotionally isolate themselves from other people until human interaction eventually becomes emotionally aggravating. That aggravation turns into contempt and eventually violence. So this is a type of psychosis that people can get whenever they have too much cyberware implanted into their bodies. Many studies suggest that this illness is connected to an individual's cyber augmentations, but there's still no proof of what causes some individuals to be more susceptible to the illness than others. There's a dangerous degree of social stratification, an enormous crime rate, and migratory unrest in almost every part of the world. So this time frame, the year 2077, things aren't really great at all whatsoever. Things are crazy, crime is terrible, the environment is completely just trashed, and I don't know, man, things are a little bit crazy. But those were all of the notes that I took, and that was one of the main parts that I really wanted to talk to you guys about, was just how things came to be, so that you guys can kind of have an idea of why Night City is the way it is when you start playing the game. When you see the air quality is terrible, when you see the environment is not so good, when you see all of the crime going on, now you know why. There's unrest in the city and in the world because of all of the wars going on, because of there being free states and some states aren't free, and the government is going up against corporations, and corporations are kind of starting to take over. Some of my favorite takeaways in this book was definitely the part about Braindance, which I thought was really cool. So Braindance is basically this type of virtual reality, I would say, except it's not like the virtual reality we know and love today. It's more real, because you basically tap into someone's memories. You can feel their memories, you can feel their emotions, you can feel whatever they're feeling, and you can see whatever they're seeing for a given moment in time. A lot of people end up dying from overusing Braindance, because Braindance can get very dangerous depending on what you're watching. There's a lot of underhanded Braindance that goes on behind the scenes and in the darker areas of Night City. There's people that watch Braindances of people harming themselves. People use Braindance to participate in adult activities, I will say. From someone else's point of view, people use Braindance to live the life of celebrities. It talks about it a lot here. Here's Judy. I love her. But to use Braindance, you need a Braindance headset. And throughout Night City, there's a lot of Braindance arcades, which I thought was really cool. Like, it made me really want to use it. There's portable Braindance stations that you can, I guess, rent out. Some people have Braindance set up in their homes. And then there's Black Braindance, which refers to Braindance recordings of criminal activity, often extremely violent, psychotically sexual, or both. So this is the kind of Braindance that can leave people dead if they use it too much, because you're feeling everything the person who's recording the Braindance is feeling, which can get pretty scary. Yeah, see, this part talks about like the problems with Braindance and how dangerous it can be if you don't use it responsibly. The different districts I thought was really cool. I love how diverse this world is. I can't wait to see the difference in the districts, the difference in how people interact in each district, the difference in the way people dress, the difference in the different gangs. Speaking of gangs, I think the Mox, I think they're going to be my favorite. They're the neon-like girls that you see in Lizzie's bar. There's a section that talks about the corporations. This one, I think this is gonna be my favorite. It talks about how they really are adamant about protecting adult workers because they were formed during the riots that occurred after the death of Elizabeth Lizzie Borden, a strip club owner and former prostitute who was known for treating her workers fairly and defending them from violent clients. In 2067, one of Lizzie's girls was brutally raped and murdered by Tyger Claw gangers. And Tyger Claws are this gang. Lizzie avenged her by killing 3 of the assailants with an axe and displaying their bodies in front of her club, proclaiming that the same would happen to anyone else who hurt a prostitute. That night, Tyger Claws raided and demolished her bar before killing her. These actions created an uproar that the Tigers could not have foreseen. Lizzie's death set off a wave of protracted riots all over Night City, and Tyger Claws members and businesses became the main targets of the violence. Those events cemented Elizabeth Borden as a symbol of defiance against gangers, lawlessness, and brutality. Her ideological successors commemorated her by rebuilding her place, naming it Lizzie's Bar, and forming a gang that brought together those who felt threatened and oppressed, especially among sex workers and sexual minorities. I really like them. I love how they look and everything. I'm just really excited for this game, guys. I cannot freaking wait. I definitely recommend this book. The interview with Rogue was very interesting as well, where she talks about how Cyberpunk was different back when she was younger opposed to how it is now in 2077. Hold on, let me show you guys a picture of her. So this is Rogue here. She was in the Atlantis group with Johnny Silverhand and Morgan Blackhand, I think. This book just gives you a lot of insight into the world. You kind of have more of an idea of what you're getting yourself into with the game, but they don't hold back in this book. I love how they kind of have the book, I don't know, the way they go about it. Like each section is kind of written by like a different journalist, I guess you could say, or a person that has expertise in whatever they're talking about. The Braindance section is written by Judy, and she is the girl that you see in Lizzie's Bar or the Braindance segment that they've shown in many of the previews and trailers. That section is written by her, and you can kind of see what she thinks about everything and what she knows about everything involving Braindance. And if you want to know the ins and outs of the world and the atmosphere and the social classes, the gangs, all of those things, I highly recommend getting this book. If you're somebody that likes collectibles, I highly recommend getting it. I read this book from cover to cover. It really didn't, it took me long because I would take breaks, but it really, like they have a lot of pages where there's like huge pictures. So a lot of the pages there really isn't much reading. So it's fairly easy to fly through, honestly, but it is a really good book. And I'm so glad that I got it and was able to read it before the game came out. So I'm ready to take on Night City because I have more of an idea of what I'm getting myself into, because I'm getting myself into a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to comment your thoughts below. What life path are you starting out with? And what do you think about Night City and how it came to be? And what's your favorite gang? Let me know down below. Be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you guys next time. I'm so excited for Cyberpunk, guys. I'm so excited. Okay, bye guys.